Folks, the radical left's lawfare against not just Donald Trump, not just Donald Trump's inner circle, but even against everyday Americans who happen to get on the wrong side of somebody, has not ended yet. In fact, our next guest is a victim of that, probably one of the most important witnesses to that. She was Donald Trump's counsel of record during the absolutely insane raid on his house at Mar-a-Lago. I'm referring, of course, to the great attorney Christian Bobb. She is an attorney in Washington, D.C. She's got a special emphasis in national security law. She's worked as an investigative reporter. She actually was a correspondent for One American News. And she served as one of Donald Trump's attorneys during the 2020 election fiasco, and then even into the 2024 election. She was the Republican National Committee's election integrity. She was senior counsel there to help ensure Trump's victory. Well, she's got a new book out. Donald Trump actually wrote the foreword to it. It's called Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. And in fact, she is still a criminal defendant in one of these very lawfare cases that we're talking about. Christina, welcome back to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. It's a great honor. Christina, so you were there at Mar-a-Lago. You were Trump's counsel during this. A lot of Americans, I think, were watching in horror. But this is, I guess, the definitive account of one of the most important moments in American political history. Give us a 50,000-foot view. What was that like? What happened? What was it like being there on the ground and watching all this?
Yeah, I mean, it was a disgusting abuse of power. They had no probable cause. They had to go to a judge who just weeks prior had recused himself because he said he was conflicted and unable to be impartial towards Donald Trump. And that's the judge they had to go to get a warrant. And even to get that warrant, they had to lie to that judge. That affidavit wasn't even complete. It didn't give the full picture. So they had no probable cause. They had no good faith basis for doing this. There's so much to this that I can't wait for the American people to see. This was never meant to be a Florida case. It was supposed to be a Washington, D.C. case. It was moved to Florida only because they couldn't actually get an indictment of Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. We all know you can indict a ham sandwich, and they could not get an indictment of Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. So they had to move it to Florida and create some sort of obstruction of justice case that everybody knew was bogus. So there's so much to this. I'm really excited to have the book out. I'm excited that President Trump did the foreword, so you've got a note from him in there. And it's just a wild time in American history.
Yeah, it really is. And folks, that book comes out September 9th. So make sure you get a copy of it. This is, I think, one of the biggest scandals in our history to have a former president raided like this. And of course, that was just one facet of the lawfare, Christina. As you know, Letitia James up in New York, Alvin Bragg up in New York. I mean, this was coming from all angles. A lot of his inner circle was also in the crosshairs. Now, it seems like those are largely falling now like dominoes, but the scandal continues, right? I mean, you mentioned before we went on that you are still a defendant in a criminal case in Arizona going back to some of this. Talk to us about some of what's still happening on this front.
Well, all of the cases are still open, except they have dropped Donald Trump. Donald Trump is no longer a criminal defendant, but the Georgia case with Fani Willis is still open. My case in Arizona, the case in Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, they are still prosecuting Trump supporters in those states. Not very well. They're having a hard time getting through the process because they don't actually have probable cause, which is making it hard for them to prosecute. So it's taking a long time, but rather than dropping the cases, they're just letting the cases languish. So for example, my indictment has been thrown out, but the court just hasn't closed the case. The prosecutors supposedly are either trying to appeal or, trying to figure out some way to salvage their case. They're not going to be able to do it. But rather than close the case and let us get on with our lives, they're forcing us to go through this whole process, allowing the prosecutors to do whatever they want, destroying our lives, incurring legal fees, the shame and humiliation of being labeled an accused felon, all the things that come with that. It's really, really horrible. So at this point, they know they're never going to get a conviction. They're not even going to get a trial. I mean, this thing isn't going anywhere in any of these states, but they're just using the process itself as punishment.
Yeah, and I'm sure costing everybody involved huge amounts of money while they burn through taxpayer money. Absolutely amazing. It seems like in some ways the tables are starting to turn. In fact, we've got an article from General Flynn. He was the first one targeted in the Russia collusion hoax, where he says the hunters have become the hunted. This will be in the upcoming issue of the New American. And we just had, of course, the big raid on John Bolton's house. It looks like there's a little more legal substance to these, to me at least. What do you say about what's happening, about the revelations we've seen from the Director of National Intelligence? I mean, how bad was this? Where is it going? And what should Americans know?
Yeah, no, it's really bad. I'm so grateful for Tulsi Gabbard for actually releasing the information and continuing to fight the bureaucracy to get more information to release to the American people. The raid on John Bolton's house, couldn't have happened to a nicer person. I mean, I'm pleased to see it. But that raid, to me, there were some significant differences between what I saw with what they did with John Bolton versus what happened at Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago, the FBI showed up. They didn't announce anything. They were there for, I don't know, 8 to 10 hours. They were trying to keep it very hush-hush. There were no flashing lights, nothing like that. And it wasn't until Donald Trump announced the raid. It was Donald Trump. Donald Trump, not the FBI, not the Department of Justice. Donald Trump was the one who announced the raid in the evening. And that's when they sent the lights and the sirens and all that. But the raid was basically over at that point. But they were hiding it. And then it took them 3 days to acknowledge it. For 3 days, we saw the Biden administration go, well, I had no idea. How did Mar-a-Lago get raided? This is so bizarre. We had no idea. A bunch of rogue agents just went and did it themselves. And it wasn't until August 11th, 3 days after the raid, that Merrick Garland finally had a 3-minute press conference where he said, yeah, okay, I approved it. This was me. So he very sheepishly took responsibility for it. That's not what we saw on Friday. On Friday, we saw Kash Patel come out in the morning with a post on social media and say, no one is above the law. He took responsibility for it because he knows he's on good ground. He knows he's got probable cause. He's not worried about his probable cause falling short. And so he came out early, took responsibility. The FBI put a statement out saying, yep, we're raiding John Bolton's home. We have a search warrant to do so. And that's you'll learn more when there's more for us to tell. So it's the way these raids are being conducted are very different, and it leads me to believe that Kash Patel has something, and I look forward to seeing what they've got.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to some of the lawfare that was waged against the president, against you, against some of his supporters. I'm not a lawyer. I won't pretend to be one. I don't play one on TV.
Yeah.
But it seems to me like weaponizing the justice system, law enforcement, intelligence like that ought to be a crime. I mean, I'm aware of some federal statutes that criminalize violating people's rights under color of law.
Yeah.
Can any of these people be held accountable, Christina? Should they be held accountable, and how would that look?
Yeah, I think they can and should be. And I hope that what we're seeing is the beginning of that, because that's how we have to recalibrate our justice system, because our justice system, both criminal and civil, is out of whack. It's out of alignment. And so it needs to be readjusted. And I think that's what Donald Trump is doing. I know, I've talked to him. I know that's what he's trying to do. And so there's two ways to do that. The people who have abused it can say, you know what, we recognize what we did was wrong. We never should have raided Mar-a-Lago. We never should have prosecuted all these innocent people. We never should have done X, Y, Z. Have them come out and take ownership of it and say, let's all agree to stop. And then we can all sing Kumbaya and move forward. That would be amazing. My preferred course of action. They're not doing it. They're not coming out and saying, we were wrong, we shouldn't have done this. They're doubling down. They're making bigger, wilder, crazier accusations than they made before. And they're indicating that they are going to continue to do what they're doing unless they are stopped. So then the only other option is to stop them. And the way you stop them is by using force, meaning holding them accountable through the criminal justice system. So I think that's what needs to happen. I think it is what President Trump is doing, and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, and we gotta hope and pray they move fast enough.
Yeah. You said something really important there, Christina. Like they may do it again. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's a real possibility? You think if these guys get back into power and nobody's held accountable, we'll see the same kind of thing all over again?
No, it will be worse. It will be significantly worse. And we know that because of 2016. Remember, in 2016, everyone was saying, lock her up, lock her up. Everybody wanted to see Hillary Clinton go to jail. At least all Trump supporters did. And when he got in office, everybody wondered, is he going to prosecute Hillary Clinton? And he said no. He said, we need to let the nation heal. We need to let Hillary Clinton heal. He was trying to move forward. He was trying to do what the left is telling him to do now. It's like, oh, we'll let bygones be bygones. And what did they do? They came at him harder than we've ever seen. They came at him trying to cripple him, trying to ensure he could never come after them. They came after him with everything they could possibly think of to come after him and those of us around him and innocent supporters all over the country. They came hard and they still lost. And so what that tells me is if President Trump doesn't nip this in the bud in this term, if they ever get another chance at power, they are going to up the ante significantly more to ensure that there's nobody that ever has a chance to hold them accountable again.
Yeah, that is frightening to put it mildly. Christine, on a related front, your last book, which was very, very good, Stealing Your Vote, the inside story of the 2020 election and what it means for 2024, you identified some very significant problems. Obviously, people are already starting to get ready for the midterm coming up. Right. What are your thoughts? Have we made enough progress on the election front to make sure that we have honest, secure elections that we can trust going into the midterms?
No, I don't think our elections are secure. The big advantage to 2024 was that we didn't have COVID. You know, the COVID rules, the COVID game. I mean, that was crazy. That's why the 2020 election was crazy. So not having COVID is better. But as long as you've got mail-in ballots, you're going to have significant problems. So I very much applaud President Trump's efforts to get rid of mail-in ballots, which we should be able to do if Republicans wanted secure elections. Doesn't it make you wonder why we don't have them? Because it would be very easy for the House and Senate to pass a very simple legislation. But it hasn't happened. And that was consistent with what I saw when I was doing all my investigative work post 2020, was that it really was the Republicans in the way. And, you know, Democrats don't want it. They say they want mail-in ballots, and then Republicans say no, they're bad, and then get in the way when you try to actually get rid of them. So Republicans are the problem, just putting it bluntly on that front. So, you know, we've got work to do, but I think President Trump is trying to do that work, which is why he's got the executive orders and, you know, trying to direct as much effort as he can towards this. But his efforts, the obstacles to his efforts on this are Republicans, not Democrats. Wow,
that's concerning to hear. Christina, are you optimistic that these people can be held accountable, these bad actors, that we can have honest elections? I mean, are you, obviously these are huge problems. They're not going to be easy to solve. Donald Trump has shown himself to be very capable, but do you think these are realistically going to be dealt with properly over the next, 3 years that he's got in office?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I like what I'm seeing so far. I think his intentions are good. I think his cabinet is doing what they can to execute what he's asked them to do. So yeah, I think, you know, unless something changes, I think it looks like they're on a good track right now.
Yeah, I hope so. I know a lot of us hope so. Going back to your book, it's coming out in just a few days. Let's talk a little bit more about the Lawfare. What can we do in terms of like structural reforms to make sure, aside from accountability, to make sure that this doesn't happen again by any faction, by any party, by any group of individuals, the weaponization of law enforcement and the justice system? Well,
I think it really is accountability. I think our Constitution is good. I love our Constitution, and I think it works when you don't have people abusing it. And so I think it just comes down to accountability and weeding out those that are abusing it. And it's on both sides. You know, this isn't the left is much better and much more efficient about using the courts to their advantage and about weaponizing civil and criminal justice. So that is more of a leftist issue. But Republicans, you know, they're not. Let's not play Pollyanna and pretend that Republicans have been perfect throughout the system. So I think we just need to have come to Jesus moments, and that's happening as, you know, Tulsi Gabbard is producing more information, and Kash Patel. We'll see what was in the burn bags, and you know, let's see what was in John Bolton's house, and we'll get more and more information. But at the end of the day, I think there needs to be exposure and accountability. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the system. I think our system is good. I like our Constitution. I like the process that we have. We just need to clean out the people that are misusing it.
Amen. Well, one of the things we like to do on this program is give folks ideas on what they can do to make our country a better place. You know, obviously Trump has his work cut out for him. The folks in the administration do, state governments do. But what are some things that everyday grassroots Americans can do to try to improve the situation?
Find a policy issue that you care about. Get involved either with a grassroots effort or your local GOP or, you know, whatever party you're affiliated with. Get involved in something you care about. Run for office. Use your voice. Use your social media platform. Just don't be silent. We can't afford a silent majority anymore. We have to talk about the issues. We have to say that we agree with what President Trump is doing. Support him on the hard issues like prosecutions. You know, just be supportive of him and use your voice and get involved where you can.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you are doing now, in addition to this excellent book coming out very soon, you're working with Judicial Watch as an attorney and focusing on exposing government corruption. Now, what can you tell us about your work there? Anything big in the pipeline?
Yeah, I love Judicial Watch. They are fantastic. We've been really successful at getting some good information out. They've actually sued on my behalf. I work for them, but I'm also a client to get my own FBI record. I want to see what the FBI was, investigating and saying about me. I want to see, what type of information they had, what type of surveillance they were doing, that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping to get that in the next few months. But for me, that's the most interesting, is getting my own record at this point.
That'll be fascinating. Makes me want mine too.
Yeah.
Christina, we're almost out of time here, but your book drops September 9th. I do want to encourage people to get a copy of that. Again, it's called Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. Final thoughts on that, Christina, and where's the best way for people to get the book?
Yeah, it's available for pre-sale now on Amazon. The audio version, which I recorded, super excited about, will be available on September 9th. You can get it then. President Trump did the foreword. And please check it out. It's so important. I'm excited that everyone gets to see it.
Excellent. Absolutely, folks. I highly encourage you to get that. This, again, is one of the most important political scandals in our history. Christina, is there any way for people to follow you? Are you on any of the social medias? Can people follow your work there?
Yep. You can follow me on Instagram and X at Christina_Bobb, or on Truth at Christina Bobb.
Excellent. Well, Christina, thank you very much for all the work that you are doing. Thank you for spending some time with us here. I look forward to reading your full book, and I hope we could talk to you again once you get that FBI file. But thank you once again for all that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's all we have time for today here on Conversations That Matter. Get over to thenewamerican.com. Get a copy of the book, Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. I'm Alex Newman, Senior Editor. God willing, we shall talk to you again soon. Until then, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. God bless you all. The deep state is working overtime to undermine our national sovereignty, undermine our families, undermine our churches, and ultimately enslave humanity. I know that sounds exaggerated, but it is absolutely true, and we have the receipts. Join us every week on our program, Behind the Deep State. You can find it at thenewamerican.com. We hope you will tune in, folks, because the best way to fight back against this evil agenda is to be well informed and to know what's going on. I'm Alex Newman. Check us out at thenewamerican.com.